Have you ever had that quiet moment after a conversation, a deal, a favor, where something just didn't feel right? No raised voices, no visible betrayal, just a slow, sinking sense that you were moved, not with force, but like a piece on someone else's board. You smiled. They smiled. But now you're the one left questioning your own instincts. The Stoics warned us not of storms, but of masks. They knew that danger often wears the face of charm, that not all attacks are loud. Some arrive as praise, as shared secrets, as silent expectations. Manipulators don't take your strength. They redirect it. They don't argue. They suggest. They don't push. They invite. Until one day you find yourself far from who you were, without ever being shoved. But here's the part most never see. You can't outmuscle what you don't understand. You have to see it. Not with paranoia, but with perception. Not with fear, but with clarity. Because in a world full of polished deception, awareness becomes armor. So if you've ever wondered how to protect your peace without becoming bitter, how to move among games without playing them, then stay close. We're about to uncover the quiet tactics that Stoic minds have always known and Machiavelli refined. Strategy 1. Play dumb, think sharp. Have you ever been in a conversation where something felt off? Their words were warm, but their eyes scanned you too closely. Their story tugged at your sympathy, but somehow it asked more than it offered. You couldn't quite name it, but you felt it. The subtle pull, the unspoken trap. This isn't coincidence. This is the manipulator's first move, to bait your goodness and turn it into their advantage. The Stoics taught us that not every battle is worth fighting, especially the ones where the terms are set by someone else. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." But the manipulator plays the reverse of this. They make you feel like you don't know enough, that you owe them insight, help, explanation. And if you're not careful, you'll try to prove your worth in a game you didn't choose. But there's a better way, a quieter, sharper way. Strategic ignorance. It's not about being naive. It's the art of knowing exactly what's happening and pretending you don't. You don't correct their lies. You don't flinch when they test your boundaries. You don't offer clarity when they twist confusion into control. Instead, you observe. You let them perform. And while they think they're fooling you, they're exposing every pattern, every weakness, every tell. A true warrior doesn't swing at shadows. He waits for light to reveal what's real. I once knew a man who worked under a leader everyone feared. This leader praised him in meetings, joked with him in private, but always made him second-guess his place. Instead of confronting the games head-on, the man nodded, agreed, smiled, and quietly, he documented. He watched patterns. He built quiet alliances. Months later, when that same leader tried to shift blame during a crisis, the man stepped forward, not with emotion, not with accusations, but with undeniable proof. One moment, one move. Everything shifted. You don't win this kind of battle by being louder. You win it by being colder, quieter, and more deliberate. The manipulator relies on your need to be understood, your need to defend. Let that go. Let them think they're winning. Let them rise high enough to fall by their own hand. Because in this kind of war, the right way is not to expose them too soon. The right way is to let them expose themselves. And once you understand this rhythm, you're ready to face their next move. Strategy 2. Shape the story, don't chase it. Have you ever felt your name being reshaped by someone else's voice? Like the version of you that people whisper about is no longer yours to defend. It's a quiet kind of theft, not of possessions, but of perception. And for manipulators, that's the prize they chase, because in their world, the truth doesn't matter. only the story does. The Stoics taught that you cannot control what others say, but you can control what you embody. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But manipulators don't argue. They insinuate. They twist half-truths into full narratives. They create fog, then blame you for the blur. Their power doesn't come from being right. It comes from making others doubt you while they stay unseen. And that's why you must become the one who defines the frame. Don't waste your breath chasing down every rumor. Don't play their game of clarification. A warrior does not explain his strength, he shows it. If they lie, don't react with desperation. Respond with precision. Reframe. What they call coldness, you call composure. What they call withdrawal, you call clarity. When they paint you as unstable, you show up grounded. Repeatedly, quietly, without the need to scream your truth. I knew a woman once, a teacher, who was targeted by a colleague who envied her presence. He spread whispers that she was distant, uncooperative, difficult to work with. At first, she was tempted to explain, to meet privately with every staff member, to clear the air. But instead, she chose the path of the Stoic. She stayed steady, led every class with poise, offered help without explanation, built alliances through consistency. And in time, his words fell flat. Not because she fought them, but because she rewrote the entire tone of the room with her silence and her strength. This is the right way, not to chase perception, but to shape it through who you choose to be, not by defending the story, but by becoming undeniable. Because when confusion is their oxygen, clarity becomes your blade. So let them talk, you walk. Let them spin, you stand. In the end, the one who commands the tone commands the outcome. And once you've taken back your image, there's another battlefield waiting, one they'll never expect you to control. Let's move to the next move in silence. Strategy 3. Fracture the alliance. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the silence wasn't just silence, but agreement, a shared look, a nod, a laugh that wasn't about you, but around you? There's a certain kind of alliance that doesn't need words to sting. And when manipulators move in groups, this silent choreography becomes their shield. Not because it's built on strength, but because no one has dared to question it. Machiavelli understood something the Stoics would never say outright, but always lived. What looks united from the outside is often splintered within. The Stoics spoke of integrity, wholeness within the self. But manipulators, they operate through division, through subtle alliances formed out of mutual benefit, not mutual respect. Their unity is a performance held together by fragile pride and unspoken envy. That's why the warrior doesn't charge headfirst into confrontation. He listens. He waits. He watches how they move, how they protect one another, how they lean just a little too hard on being aligned. And then he applies quiet pressure, not through force, but through suggestion. Praise one just slightly more than the others. Ask small, seemingly harmless questions about their connection. Let doubt drip like water onto stone, slow, relentless. I once heard of a man in an office, quiet, competent, unnoticed. His superiors dismissed him, even mocked him behind his back. But he saw something they didn't. Their strength was only in their unity. So he never confronted them. He complimented one manager more than the others. He let slip that another had spoken highly of him in private. Within weeks, the alliances turned suspicious. Conversations slowed, side meetings stopped. Their trust eroded, not from his attack, but from their own insecurities. Seneca once wrote, "He who seeks wisdom must not just endure insult, but observe its source." Don't react to the noise of their unity. Study it. Their coordination is a house of cards, built quickly, fallen faster, and when cracks begin to form, your stillness becomes their unraveling. This isn't about cruelty, it's about clarity. The right way to neutralize a group built on performance is not to fight it. It's to let it crumble under the weight of its own imbalance. Once they begin to question each other, you won't have to lift a finger. And when their fortress falls, you'll be ready for the next move, one that doesn't divide them, but erases their influence entirely. Strategy 4. Reveal without blame. Have you ever watched someone twist a moment into something it never was, only to smile while others nodded along? You sit there, feeling the edge of something dishonest, but you say nothing, not because you don't see it, but because you know. If you speak too directly, they'll twist it again, this time into a weapon against you. This is the curse of truth in a world that favors appearances. And the Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "If anyone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change, for it is the truth I seek, and the truth never harmed anyone." But manipulators don't seek truth, they avoid it, because truth burns through illusion. And that's why the right way to reveal them isn't through confrontation, it's through quiet, deliberate exposure. Don't point and name. That only makes you look unstable. Instead, turn the light just slightly. Mention things you've noticed. Ask questions that sound innocent, yet unsettling. Wasn't that story a bit different yesterday? Or, do you remember when she said the opposite last week? Don't accuse, just reflect. Your goal is not to destroy them, it's to let their script collapse under its own contradictions. I once heard of a mentor who was constantly undermined by a charming peer. This peer never attacked directly, just whispered doubts, altered details, crafted small stories behind closed doors. But instead of fighting back, the mentor stayed composed. In meetings, he would occasionally pause, tilt his head, and ask something simple like, "Didn't you say something else earlier?" He never raised his voice, never made it personal, just let the silence do the work. People started noticing, the inconsistencies became visible, and the whisperer exposed, without anyone needing to shout. That is how a warrior of reason moves, not through emotional bursts, but by letting reality rise on its own. Because people hate being misled, but they hate feeling foolish even more. Once doubt is planted, it grows fast. You don't have to drag anyone into the truth. Just crack the door. They'll walk through on their own. So hold your posture. Stay still. Don't argue with shadows. Let their performance fall under its own weight. And once you've planted the seed of doubt, step back in silence. The next move isn't louder. It's colder. Let's go there. Strategy 5. Speak through silence. Have you ever sat across from someone who was trying to provoke you, poking, needling, layering their words with sweet venom, waiting for you to break the calm? They don't need to raise their voice. They just need you to lose yours. Because the moment you react, they take control of the scene. And suddenly, your truth sounds like instability, your passion gets labeled as anger, and your character is reduced to a single outburst. But the Stoics warned us long ago, the man who cannot master his tongue will never master his fate. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Silence in the face of provocation is not weakness. It is proof. It is discipline forged in fire. The manipulator wants noise because they thrive in confusion. But silence makes them face themselves, and they don't like what they see. A warrior does not answer every insult. He does not match every tone. He controls the tempo of battle with presence, not panic. I remember a story of a young woman in a team meeting falsely accused of mishandling a project. Her accuser smiled, laid out assumptions as facts, and turned to her expecting a defensive storm. But she didn't defend. She didn't flinch. She just looked back, still, focused, unreadable. She let the room sit with the weight of his words. And in that silence, something shifted. His confidence cracked. People began re-examining what they'd just heard. Later, when she spoke, she said only what was needed, no more. And every word landed like a hammer. You see, when used with wisdom, silence is not avoidance, it's strategy. It forces others to reveal themselves. The one who can stay still while being provoked holds the higher ground, because when you don't feed the fire, it burns out on its own. This is the right way to speak without defending, to resist without reacting. The less you explain, the less they can twist. Let them talk. Let them overreach. Let them unravel by their own doing, because when your voice finally breaks the silence, it won't be to prove a point. It will be to end the game. And once you've learned to wield silence, the next lesson is even more dangerous. How to vanish before they even know what you've taken. Let's move forward. Strategy 6. Let them need you. Have you ever watched someone shift from control to caution, not because you confronted them, but because they realized they needed you more than you needed them? That moment when the one who once played games begins to tread carefully. It doesn't happen through force. It happens through positioning. The Stoics never preached control over others, but they mastered control over outcomes. As Marcus Aurelius reflected, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That means stepping beyond emotion and into influence. When dealing with someone who thrives on manipulation, the right way isn't to fight fire with fire. It's to become indispensable in silence. A manipulator's strength lies in making others orbit around them. But when you become the one they rely on, whether for results, insights, or stability, the axis shifts. You flip the dynamic, offer value they can't replicate, make yourself useful, but not fully available. Let your presence be powerful and your absence felt. Deliver outcomes, then disappear. Show them you can help them win, but never too easily. That gap keeps them leaning in, reaching, needing. There was once a man who worked under a high-level executive known for playing favorites and pulling strings. Most tried to flatter him, others avoided him. But this man, he quietly became the one who solved problems no one else could. He delivered when things fell apart, and then he stepped back, took quiet time away. Every absence made the executive more careful, more accommodating. Over time, the game stopped. Not out of kindness, but out of dependence. This is not about cruelty, it's about balance. A warrior doesn't crave approval. He creates necessity. He knows that the more irreplaceable he becomes, the more the enemy must adjust. And when they begin to tolerate your boundaries, your silence, even your distance, not out of respect, but out of need, that's when you become untouchable. Leverage, not likability. Strategy, not sentiment. This is the power the Stoics knew, to stand where others shift, to anchor where others chase. And when you've mastered how to be needed without needing, you're ready for the next strike. One that doesn't just protect your space, but makes it impenetrable. Let's move forward. Strategy 7. Flip their tactics. Have you ever looked someone in the eye, knowing they were trying to control you, but instead of resisting, you simply let them wonder what you might do next? Not out of fear, not out of aggression, but because you knew, deep down, you held something they didn't: restraint. The Stoics taught us not to mimic the chaos of others, but to understand it so deeply we could move through it untouched. Epictetus once wrote, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." But what if you weren't angry? What if you smiled? What if you became so unreadable, so calmly unpredictable that they didn't know whether they'd won or lost? Manipulators use tools like fear, confusion, and guilt. But those tools only work on minds that are reactive. Your task isn't to reject the game. They expect that. Your task is to play it better, with detachment, with precision. Not to become like them, but to make their tactics collapse under your stillness. There was once a young man whose colleague constantly lied to gain favor. Everyone saw through it, but no one said anything. The young man didn't confront him. He praised the liar's creativity in front of others, with just enough sincerity to sound like admiration, and just enough edge to raise eyebrows. When he was guilt-tripped about missing a meeting, he apologized gently and added, "Thank you for holding the space," then walked away. That evening, people weren't talking about the meeting. They were talking about how oddly calm he'd been, how disarmed the manipulator had looked. This is the quiet power of reversal. When someone lies, don't correct, observe. When they flatter you with a hidden motive, receive it with stillness. When they bait you with guilt, thank them and leave. The moment you show you're not reacting, they begin to overthink. And when they overthink, they overstep. A warrior of wisdom doesn't flinch. He bends the game without announcing it. He doesn't resist every move. He lets the opponent walk into their own trap, thinking they're winning. This isn't revenge, it's balance. The right way isn't to punish, but to reveal, not through force, but through exposure. And once you've mastered that, once they begin to doubt the very tools they once used, you're ready to take the one thing they never expect to lose: control. Let's move forward. Strategy 8. Lead with presence. Have you ever entered a room and felt eyes shift, not because of what you said, but because of how you carried yourself? There's a kind of presence that needs no introduction. It doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It simply fills the space with clarity, with control, with quiet power. And when you learn to embody that, the games of manipulators begin to fall apart before they even begin. The Stoics understood that posture is more than the body. It's the mind revealed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and when your thoughts are ordered, your presence is immovable." The manipulator doesn't fear confrontation. They fear composure. They fear the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't rush, doesn't seek approval. Presence isn't about dominating a space. It's about refusing to be pulled by it. Walk slower than the chaos. Speak less than the noise. Meet their eyes, but give them nothing they can decode. When someone asks for too much too soon, pause. When a room expects you to react, breathe instead. You don't need to be cold, you need to be calm, and in that calm, you become unreadable. There was a woman once, a junior partner in a boardroom full of louder, older voices. They underestimated her, expected nerves, expected over-explaining. But she sat still, spoke when needed. And when a senior tried to interrupt, she didn't raise her voice. She just looked at him silently until he stopped. By the end of that meeting, no one remembered what the louder ones said. They remembered her presence, and no one dared test her twice. This is the armor the warrior wears, crafted not of steel, but of restraint. Your tone, your pace, your stillness, they speak long before your words do. When you remove all signs of desperation, you remove every hook they could use to pull you in. The right way to enter a room is with purpose, not performance. You don't need to intimidate. You need only to stop chasing comfort, because the one who stands without seeking approval is the one no one dares to play. And once your presence becomes your defense, it's time to move to the final lesson, the one that doesn't just protect you, but turns every move into quiet mastery. Let's continue. Strategy 9. Lose small, win big. Have you ever stepped back, not out of fear, but because you saw the bigger picture? You watched someone take credit for your work, twist a conversation, or parade a small win like a crown. Everything in you wanted to respond, to correct, to reclaim your place. But instead, you said nothing, and they mistook your silence for weakness. That's exactly where the Stoic finds his power. Seneca once wrote, "He who does not know how to lose with dignity will never win with honor." And losing, if done with intention, is not defeat. It's design. It's the art of stepping back, not to surrender, but to bait. Because the manipulator feeds on resistance. They grow louder when you push back. But remove the tension, and they grow blind, comfortable, predictable. This is the tactic Machiavelli understood better than anyone. When someone believes they're winning, they stop hiding. So let them win, but only the battles that don't matter. Let them boast, overreach, and grow confident in their illusion of control. Meanwhile, you remain still, you observe, you gather leverage, and by the time they sense the shift, it's far too late. I once heard of a team leader who was being subtly undermined by a rival. Someone who hijacked credit, whispered in corners, and played politics well. But the leader didn't argue. He didn't explain. He just kept building, collecting proof. Then, in a key meeting, he laid out the full roadmap, naming every contributor except the rival. The absence of credit was louder than accusation. It wasn't revenge, it was precision. That's the warrior's way, calm, calculated, complete. You're not weak for stepping back. You're allowing their ego to expose them. And when the time comes, you don't react, you conclude. That's the right way. Not to win every moment, but to own the final move. Because true power isn't in the blow. It's in the pause before it. It's in the restraint that lets ego overplay itself, and in the silence that gathers truth while others perform. And from that stillness, we begin. Strategy 1. Win quietly, not righteously. Have you ever tried to speak the truth, only to be met with blank stares, or worse, polite smiles masking disbelief? You lay out the facts, you appeal to reason, you expect people to wake up, but nothing changes. And in that moment, it hits you. Being right doesn't always matter. Not in a world where perception moves faster than truth. The Stoics never taught us to cling to righteousness. They taught us to master clarity, detachment, and timing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But manipulators don't seek the truth. They manufacture it. They don't debate with logic. They weave perception. And if you think truth alone will protect you, you're already walking into their story as the villain. That's why the warrior doesn't fight to be understood. He fights to remain unmoved. Machiavelli understood that power isn't seized by volume or justice. It's taken by control, silence, and the ability to move without being seen. The manipulator thrives when you react, when you explain, when you try to expose. But the moment you step into that arena, you've already let them define the frame. So don't play by their rules. Play above them. When they cry to avoid consequence, observe. When they smile while hiding a blade, don't flinch. When they accuse you, don't defend. Ask questions that turn the mirror back on them. Do it with calm. Do it with space. Let their tactics collapse under the weight of your stillness. I knew a woman once, sharp, calm, always underestimated. Her colleague would interrupt, twist her words, then act offended when challenged. But she never took the bait. She just asked one question: "Is that what you meant to say?" And silence followed. The room turned, and slowly he stopped trying. Not because she fought, but because she gave him nothing to grip. The right way isn't loud, it isn't righteous, it's surgical. It's the art of unraveling their performance without ever stepping onto their stage. You don't need to win the room, you just need to stop giving them fuel. Because when a manipulator realizes they can't pull you into their world, they lose control of their own. And once you've mastered this detachment, you're ready for the next move, the one where you reshape the story before they ever speak it. Let's continue. Strategy 2. Make them need you. Have you ever noticed how people lean in just a little more when they sense you don't need them? There's something quietly commanding about a man who doesn't seek approval, doesn't explain himself, and doesn't ask to be chosen. That kind of self-possession shakes the foundation of anyone who thrives on control. Because when you no longer need them, they lose their grip on you. The Stoics understood this long before it was weaponized. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." But manipulators don't want you to look inward. They want you to look to them for validation, for closure, for direction. Because the moment you show need, you surrender power. That's why the right way to deal with manipulation isn't confrontation, it's indifference. If they ghost you, let silence become your reply. If they insult you, let a smirk speak louder than any argument. If they twist truths behind your back, let time do the revealing. You don't chase, you don't beg, you move like someone who holds more value than the noise around him. I once knew a man who refused to defend himself against a circle of colleagues trying to isolate him. Instead, he focused on results, quietly built trust, delivered, showed up, and never asked for recognition. Over time, others began to turn to him not out of sympathy, but because they needed clarity, consistency. The manipulator who once held sway slowly faded. Not because he was exposed, but because he became irrelevant. That's what Machiavelli called conquest through replacement. When you remove the manipulator's utility, when your steadiness exposes their chaos, the shift begins. But it doesn't end there. Sometimes the most effective way to expose someone is without naming them at all. Don't accuse, just observe. In a meeting, drop a single observation. It's strange how often charm covers fear, or the loudest critics usually hide the most. You're not pointing fingers, you're planting seeds. And if the manipulator is guilty, they'll overreact. If they go quiet, that speaks louder than protest. Either way, people start connecting the dots. Not because you told them what to see, but because you let them discover it themselves. The warrior doesn't shout the truth. He shapes it in silence, with subtlety. But there's another enemy you must tame: chaos. Manipulators live off it. They twist timelines, stir confusion, and blur intentions. The antidote? Repetition, routine, structure. When your days are grounded, your words measured, and your actions consistent, they can't grab hold of anything. You become a vault, predictable to those who respect you, but impenetrable to those who seek to stir you. And when their noise doesn't move you, their grip weakens. But here's the real strike: let them destroy themselves. Machiavelli believed in long games. Give them the illusion of safety. Let them think you're not watching, and they'll reveal themselves. Too much pride, too much talking, too many lies, until the mask cracks. And you won't have to lift a finger. The world will see what you've seen all along. Expose them? No, let them expose themselves. That's why your next move is critical. When they push closer, inch into your rhythm, demand your attention, you disappear. Not permanently, just enough to remind them your presence is earned. Let's go there. Strategy 3. Speak less, control more. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you said too much and still weren't heard? As if your honesty only fed confusion, your explanations twisted into something else entirely. That's no accident. Manipulators count on you to keep talking, because every word you offer becomes a tool they can sharpen against you. The Stoics knew clarity requires economy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In a world ruled by perception, restraint isn't silence, it's structure. And when facing manipulation, the one who speaks least often holds the most control. Machiavelli never wasted energy on noise. He understood that a warrior never reveals his full stance until the strike. So when you're falsely accused, don't defend, redirect. If they insult you, don't flinch. Observe. If they question your motives, don't explain. Just smile. Because control is not in how loud you speak, but in how little you need to. I once saw a junior executive accused of mishandling a deal. The room expected panic, but instead he paused, turned to the board, and calmly said, "If there's an error, the data will show it. Let's look together." He spoke 10 words. The room quieted, and the manipulator, sensing no opening, folded under their own exaggeration. The man said less, but revealed more. That's control. Now build on that. Don't just defend your peace, shape the world around it. Because manipulators don't survive in strong environments. They breed in weak ones, in gossip, in chaos. So build your circle of thinkers, people who prize logic over impulse, clarity over noise. When the room is grounded, the games fall flat, whispers go unheard, and their mask becomes unbearable to wear. Machiavelli never walked with flatterers. He chose men of merit. Because when you surround yourself with those who cannot be manipulated, you become unreachable by those who try. And yet there's a subtler blade, one that cuts deeper than confrontation, kindness, not the soft, boundaryless kind, but strategic generosity. Offer peace when they expect war. Smile where they anticipate a blow. It disarms them, confuses them, and when their guard drops, not from trust, but from calculation, that's when you pull your power back, cleanly, quietly. And when they ask why, you say nothing, because the collapse was never personal. It was planned. Don't try to teach them a lesson. That's your ego speaking. Manipulators don't change because you lecture. They change when no one plays their game anymore, when the room no longer reacts, when silence is louder than accusation. That's the real lesson, not taught, but lived. And now comes the final strike, the mirror. You don't resist them, you reflect them. When they flatter, you flatter. When they lie, you nod. When they control, you appear to yield, but inside you are still, unshaken, unreadable, until they're staring not at their victim, but at their reflection. And for the first time, they don't feel powerful, they feel seen, completely, and that's when the game ends. If you value silence over noise and strategy over reaction, subscribe now. This journey is only beginning, and the next move is yours.